All right, so everyone, welcome. And as I just mentioned, the last time that I was on and teaching, I started a series on the life of Jacob, and two things about it. One is that it didn't record well, and we like to have the series available for people to go back and listen to if they want, or new people to listen to it. And two, some of the comments and questions that I got during the weeks since that lesson um, caused me to think a little bit more about reteaching it anyway, but I'm going to add a few things to it. So, as we talked about that time, the life of Jacob, as we're discussing it, sort of begins with really the conception of the twins in Revka, uh, the two children, only children of Isaac, and then going through his life, and 147 years of it, and in that way, as we talked about, the Torah gives these examples of these um, series of twos. Obviously, a twins is a series is a two, is a pairing, right? And we had that the pairing of uh, who else? Isaac and Ishmael, and Cain and Abel, and there's all these expressions of these pairings in the Torah and the instruction given to us. And from the questions and comments I got after discussing that a little bit, I want to make sure the fundamental point of reviewing this and Jacob's life isn't fragmented. It's about unity, right? It's not about fragmentation. And there's a real danger in reading Torah or any spiritual instruction um, and coming away with a fragmented view, right? But the paradox, so it's nuanced. The paradox here is that there is diversity, but the purpose is it all draws back to the unity. So we talk about this. I guess if there's a uh, a central theme to this UMI movement or whatever it is unity in that diversity, or engaging the essence, which is unified, a divine essence of all things, right? So when we look at the life of any Torah figure, whether it's Jacob or Jacob and Esau or Isaac and Ishmael or even Cain and Abel, we're looking at it from the point of view of all of these things are us and we consist of them. So the tree of life, as you would say, with its right side and left side and central column, is all for us, the person. So we have to individualize it first. We have to individualize that form of consciousness first before we can experience in the world of action and diversity unity, right? So when we experience unity as an individual with all of those things internally, then we can begin to experience it in the world of action. So here's another duality that's really a singularity, right? That there's a spiritual realm, and then there's the world of action and a material realm. Those things are one, ultimately. So what happens in the world of the spirit happens in the world of physical reality, and the physical reality happens in the world of the spirit. It's a unified field. So a real danger in teaching about all of the fragmentations of and all of the cycles of Jacob's life, or looking at Jacob and Esau, is that you come away with questions like, well, what side of the tree of life was Abraham? What side of the tree of life was Isaac? What side of the tree of life is Jacob? What side of the tree of life is this one and that one? And you begin to form these sort of narratives of heroes and villains and good and bad. And I have to admit that in the Torah, in the Zohar, and the Midrash, and many places that we get instruction, spiritual instruction from, the language lends itself to that. And it's a sad thing because it becomes a problem when people engage that as a narrative of their lives. So you have to be able to read those things, even though there's language in there that says good and evil or the serpent or these things like that. We have to look at that contextually and say, well, when was that written and what is the point of it? I prefer things like light and darkness, even though that has a negative and positive connotation to it, to things like angels and demons or good and evil. And Sefer Yetzirah itself, of course, uses the dimension of good and evil, but it always goes back to this understanding that from an existential point of view, what's good is that which awakens us to unity internally and externally. So we are not living fragmentally. We're living in a state of unity consciousness. So our thoughts and our feelings are very real, whether they be feelings of anger or feelings of joy or feelings of love. They're all unified in one field. So we don't deny those feelings. We don't deny the diversity of feelings, but we don't fragment them in the intellect or in the emotion or in any way. We see them as all coming from the divine within ourselves. But the point of the lessons and the point of the instruction of the Torah allows us to be awakened to and aware of that unity within ourselves, and also the natural law from which it expresses itself. So we can attune ourselves to that natural law and that expression. So when we think of Jacob and Esau, we're not thinking, oh, Jacob is the good guy and Esau is the bad guy within us. What we're thinking is, even though it's expressed that way, and I'm not denying that throughout all of the literature, what we're thinking is we're understanding unifying masculine and feminine. We're understanding unifying severity with mercy, chesed with gevorah, hakmah with binah, and how that happens within us when we let go of the narratives. So if I were to teach this, and it's going to be a lot of lessons, we're going to go through Jacob's 147 years. And hopefully it won't take us that long. But when we're looking at that, if I were to teach that and we would come away with fragmented consciousness instead of unity consciousness, I would be doing a huge disservice here, right? Terrible one. So we want to come away with a unity consciousness, with a unity view of this, even in a diversity. So we have the story, and we'll discuss left side, right side, but we're going to discuss it from the point of view of the unification within us, because that's what Jacob was. Jacob was just that unification. He was that central column, the awakenedness within him. And he was born to be that. So in his conception, and if you think about it, Rivka plays a major role in this, right? So Rivka is born from the side of severity, but experiences the side of mercy, chesed. She's awakened to it. That's what her life is, the side of chesed, not severity. So the Zohar explains to us that that's a beautiful thing. That's an instruction for us. You can be born from the side of severity and experience wholeness, by being that which is chesed, being that which is hakma, right? So this is what happens. They pray, she's barren and they pray together, and she's praying from the side of chesed, and Isaac is praying from the side of Gevarah, and he was born also from the side of severity. But they had it, that union of the two of them came together. And then she was impregnated with Jacob and Esau, these twins. So Jacob grabs the heel of Esau. And that grabbing of the heel, we discussed it last time in what kind of twins they were, and I'm not going to go into that. The grabbing of the heel, the Zohar tells us in a couple of different ways, was very significant. And one of the ways is that he, experiencing the right side, chesed, wanted to have union with the left side of Geverah. So he draws Jacob in, draws Esau in with the grabbing of the heel. So it's a beautiful metaphor to us and our inner court and our experience of chesed and geverah, or the right side and the left side. What we want to do is always function drawing from our right side the left side in, right? We've talked about that before, but Kabbalists go back to the book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, in chapter 10, verse 2. And Kohelet in chapter 10, verse 2, basically says that the wise man inclines toward the right. In other translations, and I've read many of them before this lesson, it says the wise man gains his understanding from the right, which sounds like a contradiction, because the right is hakma and understanding is binah from the left, but it's not. It's this example that Jacob gives us of grabbing the heel. So chesed grabs the heel of Gevorah. So this is natural law. And it sounds like now, again, we're fragmenting things. No, we're experiencing the diversity and how it becomes unity, right? So unity and diversity is very important. This is a major theme for what we're talking about here. So the other thing, I said there were 2 points to this. The other thing is the Kabbalists say, and the Zohar says, that Esau was blocking the light of the moon. And Jacob grabbed his heel and pulled him away, pulled him towards himself, but down to the order that he belonged in, even though he was the firstborn. So translating that into a mystical understanding, right? The moon reflects the light of the sun. And it's always used in allegory to be what we are as our consciousness. What we are is a reflection of the light of God. The light of God itself shines within us. As Isaiah said, the children of Jacob should walk in the light of God, right? So that light cannot be, there can't be something that's keeping us from that light. Of course, we call klipot. So Esau, being severe, was blocking the light of God coming through the moon. And when Jacob drew him to himself, he drew him down to his proper place. And therefore, the light from the sun was reflected in him, and that union was there. So now, before he's even born, he's in this process of unifying right and left, masculine and feminine, with the one undifferentiated, divine, Ein Sof, pure consciousness. And then his life experiences allow him to have that unification in action, in everything that he does, right? So before this, they're struggling in the womb before they're born, and Revka feels this. She goes to Shem and Eber, and Shem explains, look, these are like two nations. They'll be battling. One will have superiority, the other will have superiority. In the end, the elder will serve the younger, meaning Esau will serve Jacob. That's our lives. There's the struggle between Esau and Jacob within us. Some days, some weeks, some months, severity, the side of severity is winning, and some days the side of Chachma is winning. And then some days we are able to live in unity and acceptance and experience that unity. That's the end of the day. That's our final enlightenment. So in that enlightenment, what is that experience? That experience is ahava, that love that emanates from Ein Sof, becomes the light that shines within us. So that is where judgment and strength and severity comes from. It comes from the right side, from mercy. So if you go back to Kohelet, it says, the wise man has his understanding from the right. His inclination is from the right. So this is the story of Jacob. The story of Jacob is that unification. So if we experience that within ourselves, we know from the beginning when Shem and Eber explained this to Rivka, they said, look, this is going to happen. This is going to be the struggle. The struggle is going to be there. And it's going to go one side to the other side. But in the end, the elder will serve the younger, meaning Jacob will be served. He'll draw in Esau, and Esau will serve Jacob. This is what means to us. Our severity will serve mercy within us. Our understanding will serve the wisdom, will serve Hakma, Hakma consciousness, right? You know, it's interesting that in a Sephardic custom, maybe in Ashkenazi as well, when you get called up to the Torah, you say, Ya imched. It's spelled Yud Yud, Ya, and it's Ayin Mem Kaf Mem Imchem. And it literally means God, right? The Lord is with you, Imchem. But if you look at the letters, it's really very significant. So the whole Aliyah process in Sephardic and probably Ashkenazi too, and the blessings that follow it, is about Ayin opening that third eye. For Mem, Mem is that flow of pure consciousness. Mem is represented in the Hakma side. So that flow of pure consciousness, Ayin Mem Chaf. Chaf is like the crown. It's the first letter in the word of Keter. So the crown is that opening to that pure consciousness, that Aleph, pure consciousness flowing also through Mem. So when we come to the Torah, the idea is that we're being open to receiving. Chaf is also a receiver, right? It's like the palm of our hands. We receive, like the priesthood, we receive these things. So through our third eye. So the interesting thing to me is that if we're receiving in Seder Hashtil Shilot this order, it comes from Hakmah, it comes from Cheter, it comes from Ein Sof through that porthole, through the consciousness of Hakmah, which is represented by the Mem. So when we come to the Torah, what we're saying is, maybe we be receivers. And the Yud in the name, so it's spelled in the prayer book, Yud Yud, right? And that Yud carries the Aleph. That's the Yud. The Aleph is contained in the Yud, and that's what the Yud does. It carries the Aleph, pure consciousness, the oneness, into the world of action. And that's what Jacob was doing from the very beginning in the womb, right? He's unifying, he's drawing in, he's experiencing that. And he's born into that. And then the events that follow, which we'll get into each time, always circle back, even though we're looking at the diversity of life. We're looking at the diversity of the tree of life, the diversity of the world of action. In his 147 years. And even if you look at that number, the 1 is the unity, the 4 is Yud He Vav He. And the 7 is that inner court, the doubles in the inner court. Together, if you add them up, equals 12, which is related to the 12 tribes. So in his 147 years is about a wholeness and a completion. So I want to close with just, there's a lot in the Zohar and Toldot about this. And I just wanted to close with 2 things that stand out to this salient point. And there are a million points in here about the birth of Jacob and Esau and the conception of Jacob and Esau. But I want to just say that it's imperative that we don't allow this to make us fragmented in our consciousness or our thinking. Opposite should be that it'll allow us to be unified in our thinking with acceptance of both sides of who we are, but an understanding of we want to be inclined to the right. We want to be the wise man who has understanding and Geverah on the right. We grab the heel of it, and it draws us, and we draw it to the right. So our thinking and our inclination, we practice guiding that from the side of mercy. Our first reaction to anything in life isn't accusation, isn't judgment, isn't rigidity, but rather flexibility, love, kindness, and mercy. And then from there, an act that may seem severe can be an act that comes from mercy. And that's something we need to wrestle with, which we'll find out later when we start discussing Jacob's wrestling in life. But here from the Zohar and Toldot, Hakmah implies the superior wisdom. The lesser wisdom is also included in the superior wisdom and abides therein. There you know that when we're talking about wisdom, and we taught this in the Sefer Yetzirah class, Hakmah wisdom is the experience of pure consciousness, of the divine within ourselves. It's not an intellectual thing, but the intellectual thing is also included in the superior wisdom, right? So I reread that. Hakmah implies the superior wisdom, and the lesser wisdom is included in the superior wisdom and abides therein. Wisdom is an essence, and it is concealed. And when it expands into a source of light, its illumination is that of the world to come, and the world is created by it. These worlds are always coming. Don't think, we're not talking about Armageddon here. We're talking about wisdom is there and being is becoming. Okay? When it expands into a source of light, its illumination is that of the world to come, and that world is created by it. For we have learned that the world to come is created by the Yud, and their wisdom remains hidden, the two being one. So within the Yud is the Hakma wisdom. Within the Yud is the Aleph. Within the Yud is the higher consciousness. And it remains there throughout all of the world's becoming. Going back to Jacob. So in the womb is Jacob. It says here, Jacob is the master of the household. He had to counter the serpent to give him no chance to tarnish the sanctuary of Jacob. This goes back to grabbing the heel. I don't like the word serpent, but it's there, and I read it exactly how it's there. He's talking about right side, left side, severity, mercy. Jacob is the master of the house. He's the master of the sanctuary. So he has to, by all means necessary, keep severity in check. Because if severity is not kept in check, destruction begins to happen. When severity is kept in check and in balance with Chakma and Chesed, then we have that balance in the world. And that's when the Messiah can return. Not before then. There needs to be higher consciousness. People seem to think that we need to have terrible destruction. Well, maybe we need to have terrible destruction, but I'll tell you this, no Messiah can come and make heaven on earth without the unity that Jacob existed, without Jacob consciousness. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to experience that pure consciousness within us. We do it every day, a couple times a day in our meditation. We experience it and we lean to the right, drawing that heel of severity into kindness, compassion, and mercy.